And lo and behold, they indicted him. And I made the point, and it's true, that you can indict a ham sandwich in Texas. Old lady dipping snuff is running down her, sitting in her chair, with a shawl over her. Hug her neck, son. Hug her neck.
When God decided He's going to make Texas, He's saying, "Why can't you just put regular people there? I got to put people there that do what they want to do, that really don't care about the rules." Now, the rule followers down deep, but they're cowboys. Let's call them cowboys.
Oh, you mean the Snoop Dogg party?
Yeah, Snoop Dogg. Yeah.
Yeah. I influenced you wearing that
did,
pocket
right?
square. All right.
I can't get it as high as you do. That's the problem.
That comes from a lot of years of practice.
I'm Rick Walker. I'm sitting down with some of my most captivating friends to discuss topics ranging from politics and business to religion and pop culture. Welcome to Conversations at the Mansion. Well, Tony, thanks for hosting us today. So for the people that are outside of Texas, you have 95% name recognition in Texas, I'm sure, maybe 99%. But people outside of Texas, who's Tony Buzbee?
Just a farm guy, just a guy that grew up on a little farm about an acre size, raising hogs and chickens and ducks and guineas and peacocks and one cow, 2 Shetland ponies. My dad cut meat for a living. My mother drove our school bus. And, my future was either International Paper or Red River Army Depot. Those were the 2 jobs. Those are like the plums. That if you could get one of those jobs, you were in the money. Just by a twist of fate, was able to go to Texas A&M. None of my parents' family had ever been to college. And the rest just kind of took me on a completely different path than I had anticipated.
Sure. So you invited us to film here at your illustrative
more
offices.
Convenient for me, yeah.
This is magnificent. This is magnificent. So for those that are not in Houston or familiar with commercial real estate, we are in the tallest building in downtown Houston, the top floor, magnificent view that you see behind us. How do you get any better than this? I mean, this is phenomenal.
This is hard to beat. The office, when people come in to meet with me, these are the things that they expect. They're not coming. They're coming to see me for a reason. We want to have a nice workspace. I mean, people here work incredibly hard, so they want to have, a nice space to work in. And clients want to see that when they come in.
Yeah. So I think we're going to rename the show, instead of interviews or conversations at the mansion, we're going to do conversations at Tony Buzbee's office. So
this is probably the 4th time I've been here in 8 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Since the pandemic, we've all pretty much worked from home or from remote locations. So I come in, once every couple of months. Hopefully that will pick back up, but people are still very wary about coming in. A lot of the staff are still schooling their children at home. A lot of them, if kids are not going to school, they don't have any way to take care of their child care. And as long as the firm is purring along, I'm not really concerned with FaceTime at the office. I'm more concerned with work product.
Sure. So when I was thinking about who's Tony Buzbee, I Googled it. Who's Tony Buzbee?
Oh goodness.
This is what I realized. Tony Buzbee is a multidimensional leader, exerting influence across business, politics, food, fashion, the justice system, and philanthropy.
Well, now.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Everyone knows Tony Buzbee for fashion.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I was over at my favorite clothing store in town, Sid Mashburn, which is the only men's clothing store in River Oaks.
Yeah.
And the other day, and I said, I'm going to be with Tony Buzbee. Like, what do I need to wear? They said, well, don't wear anything flashy. The only thing you got to do is you definitely have to wear a pocket square.
Yeah, I know some of those people there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, good.
Yeah. And
it beats my Rustler jeans and plastic shoes I had growing up, I guess.
That's right. And so you're one of the most iconic Texans, and just because you've executed multidimensionally. I think this past week you were on the front page of ESPN.com every single day. Mm-hmm. New York Times pegged you as, quote, a big, mean, ambitious, tenacious, fire-breathing Texas trial lawyer. Really big, period. Poster boy big, period.
I wonder if they were talking about my weight. See, I look at everything. I read. I mean, I guess that sounds good in some respects, but I'm looking like, well, maybe I need to get, I need to push back from the table because you use big 3 times.
Yeah.
But Well, I mean, that's flattering, I guess. What I like better is when I hand somebody a large check and it changes their life dramatically.
Yes.
I like when people who I've never met use my name as a threat, and I hear about it. I enjoy that. Or I'm going to go get Tony Buzbee, and I like that, just having that kind of, usually when I walk into the court, of course, every judge I'm going to know, but most of the jurors, there's going to be jurors that either know me or know of me, and they're going to have read things like that and have their own point of view, and they're going to have their own perceptions of me. But I think once we spend some time together, they kind of see that that these are just things that people write trying to grab clicks and headlines, and there's a lot more to it than just those types of things.
Yes, certainly. I think we definitely want to get into your compassion, your philanthropy, and all the things you've done to help citizens all over the country, especially here in Houston. So speaking of Houston, the campaign, which was the epic campaign. So I think
the Don Quixote of Houston politics.
So we have something in common. I lost the most expensive congressional campaign in U.S. history. You lost the most expensive campaign, probably any mayoral campaign in U.S. history, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to be known for that. It was what it was. Once you get into it and you're fighting, you don't want to stop.
That's right.
And you're surrounded with so-called professionals who think they know what they're doing, and and they never seen a problem that money couldn't solve.
That's right.
And I think these campaigns proved that it ain't always about money.
That's right. So getting into the race, just the general election, you had was it 8 or 9 candidates, and there was a full array.
A lot of people running.
So what was the thinking? What was kind of the decision process that I want to jump into this thing? Was there any pre-polling? Was there any talking to friends? Anything like that?
There was some pre-polling. I noticed we checked name ID, as you were referencing. I had good name ID. I guess the misjudgment was we did not know how bad Trump would poll near the end of the election. Once I got connected to Trump, rightly or wrongly, the election was over, and there was nothing we could do to come out of that, because Turner had a lot of weaknesses. He had a record to run on, and it was my view it wasn't a very good record, and a lot of things had happened that lay squarely at Turner's feet. But the Trump, I couldn't get out from underneath it. There was nothing I could do. I wasn't going to come out and enrage Trump supporters. And at the same time, there was nothing I could do for people that hated Trump to get their vote. So I was just stuck. So whatever, I don't know how Trump did in the city of Houston versus how I did, but my guess would be it's close to the same.
Yes. I think we'd run some polling the year before that, and 36% of conservatives identify themselves not as a libertarian or ultra-conservative. They identify themselves as a Trump conservative.
Yeah.
Bigger than any other group.
Yeah, and Turner spent some money, of course. Probably spent a lot more than he wanted to spend. But once he started running the Trump, you couldn't look at the TV without seeing a Trump ad that had me and Trump together.
Yeah, it was the bottom of your staircase at your home, wasn't it?
Yeah, the same place that I did a fundraiser for Sylvester Turner. What was ironic about it was that on that very same stairwell, I stood with Sylvester Turner when I did him a fundraiser in my house. Just like I stood with one of the county commissioners at the same place when he ran for mayor. There have been a lot of people that have stood right there on those same two steps.
Yes.
It's just that sometimes you're just a victim of how things are at that time, and timing in politics is everything. Look at you. You would have been the congressman, but this guy pops up that you're going to interview in a couple of weeks or next week, whenever it is, Dan Crenshaw, who had his own following, and you got swept up by that.
Sure.
Any other race you'd have won. And so I feel like that had there had been no Trump in the picture, it would have been very, very competitive and very, very close.
Certainly. Do you think when you went into the race, you identify 4 candidates, but probably just you and the mayor? Did you just essentially dismiss the rest of the candidates right off the bat, or were you?
Yeah, I just knew that fun-wise they couldn't compete with me.
Yeah.
And of course I had one of the problems I had, obviously, is you had this persistent Bill King out there.
Yeah.
He's been running for office since he, he's been running for office. It seems like every cycle for something. But he had some name ID, not as much as you might think, but he had a following of people through his writings and so forth, and so I had to fight him off from the right, which Bill King is he's never fancied himself as some right-wing conservative.
Right. Yeah.
And then I had Sylvester Turner on the left. So here I was trying to be right down the middle, and basically when you're like that, you're gonna make both sides mad at you.
That's right.
It's just
That's
how
right.
it is.
That's right.
People are so polarized, and I'm not crying about how polarized people are today. People have been polarized since Abraham Lincoln. I mean, we know that. So, but it was a tough race, and again, if there hadn't have been the Trump element, it would have been a lot closer.
And you had conservatives in that race that once they lost the general, they should have come out and endorsed you to help you, and they didn't.
They didn't.
They were just sore losers.
That, and I think that they were worried about the Trump moniker.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a segment of, and I'm not a Republican. I mean, I was labeled a Republican, but I'm not really a Republican. But there was a segment of Republican voters, just like there is now, who wanted to avoid Trump at all costs.
Sure.
And so those kinds of people, the Bill King kind of Republicans, just they just stayed home. They didn't have any interest in trying to help me out.
Yeah. Intellectual elitists.
Yeah.
That's what we like to call them.
Yeah. Well, that's what they were. I still think we've always said that there should be another party in this country, because it seems like that there's elements of both parties that you simply just don't care for.
That's right.
And so then you just kind of hold your nose and pick one
That's
that you're
right.
closest to.
That's right. And you got the leftists that are using victimization. They're not real victims. They just imply that they're victims and use being victim as a tool. The right embraces the ideology that we should be victors in life. We overcome our hurdles. We don't ask for special treatment from our hurdles. And that's the tough thing, I guess, being an independent is which side do you?
It's a hard row to hoe, and it takes when you inject Trump into it, it makes it even harder. I thought I could ride that line. I thought that politics, Houston politics, is supposed to be nonpartisan. I took that to heart, but of course it wasn't that.
Sure. You
had every major so-called national Democratic leader in the country, endorsing Sylvester Turner, coming down here and speaking on his behalf, that sort of thing. And so, and you had the police union, went his way. Not that I don't know how much sway they really have anymore. I was very flattered to have the fire department working very. And so even today when I'm out and about and I see an EMT or a firefighter, I know every one of them.
Yeah.
And they wave and honk, which is really gratifying. So they were hugely supportive, diehard fans, and probably will always be, hopefully.
Definitely. Yeah, I ran into one of them that was block walking for you, campaigning for you over at the mansion. We did a political event over there 2 weeks ago, and he was still talking about you. What's Tony going to run for next? What's Tony? I said, well, I'll see him a couple weeks and ask him about that.
Yeah. Well.
So any plans in the mix right now?
No, nothing.
Yeah.
Don't have anything up my sleeve. I'm just gonna do my job.
Yeah. So if I had the opportunity to kind of caption one of your social media posts, my favorite social media post that I saw in all of 2019 was your Instagram post the day after the runoff election. You're on your jet, wearing your loafers, I think they were blue or pastel slacks, and you were heading out. And you said Houston, we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you get criticized for that too.
Yes.
Because I quote didn't concede, even though I lost, but I only got 44%. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall. I don't think I need to quote concede.
Yes.
It's not like it's going to the Supreme Court for a Bush v. Gore. I mean,
That's right.
I think the election's pretty much over. I think I'm leaving now.
Yeah.
Go get a little break.
But if I had to caption that picture, I would say that's definitely some people when they lose they really win.
Yeah.
I mean, your lifestyle would have been much worse than it is now.
You think?
Oh, it'd be horrible. You don't want that job.
Oh, you're talking about had I won.
Had you won. You don't want to be mayor, really.
Yeah. Well, I thought I really, believe it or not, I'm pretty idealistic, and I really thought that I could do some real good. I was going to do some things that people would have squawked about. The municipal union is something that we need to get under control. That we know that We know that the pension issue is still a huge issue with the long-term longevity of the city of Houston. We know that we are not performing the city services as professionally as they could be performed, specifically road maintenance and stuff. We know that building bigger highways so people can live further and further outside the city is not going to grow the city of Houston. We need to make inside the city of Houston safe, where people feel like they can have their families here. That's not just, what I call yuppies without children living here in high rises. So there's a lot of things like that a mayor with help from the private sector could do for the city of Houston had he or she a mind to do it. We just don't have anybody with a mind to do that.
Sure, and I suspect right now in our current environment, probably the county specifically, I mean, I don't want to say anything about Kim Ogg, but I'll say something about Kim Ogg. It's just totally disrespectful for the people of Houston, the types of bills and bonds that have been in place for some of these violent criminals. And it seems like there's multiple parties are responsible. You have a legislature who's maybe not acting on certain things that the counties are doing in other parts of the states. Also the federal government who's not defending the border.
Yeah. I mean, there's failure on. I mean, look at what happened on the power grid. There's failure on every level, private, public, all the way up to the governor. I mean, let's be honest about it. I even say failure in the press. The press knew that we had issues previously with our power grid. You never saw a story on it.
Yeah.
And the same is true with a lot of our local problems with crime in the city of Houston, et cetera. We got the rank and file police officers are completely frustrated. What's the point of arresting somebody? They're being released immediately.
That's right.
And even violent criminals. And, how many stories have we seen where somebody who was arrested, bonded out immediately with hardly no bond and committed a major crime?
That's right.
It happens all the time in the city of Houston. And all you see, even with regard to this Deshaun Watson issue, which is the only thing I'll say about it, is, I know a lot of the people in the police department. I know a particular detective in the police department. I had been talking to him about how do I go about bringing these women forward in a respectful, private way so they can tell their stories to somebody in the sex crimes division. And we exchanged some texts on that. Well, I told in a press conference, I said, I'm informally speaking, and the first thing that the police department did, why would they ever issue a statement on a case, and they wanted to make it clear by Twitter that I had no contact with the Houston Police Department, which I have the text.
Yes. You posted the text.
I posted one of the texts, and the detective said, "Man, you're going to get me in trouble." And I said, "They don't know who you are, man." Plus I've talked to many people, so don't. My brother-in-law is a Houston police officer,
okay.
So it's that kind of mentality at every level of government, with the exception, I think the union leadership for the fire department is doing a good job, but I think the Houston Police Department, I'm hoping to see an improvement with the new police chief. I'm told, that he's from the ranks, he's a good guy, but he's still Sylvester Turner's appointee. Yeah. So we'll see. But I do believe that somebody who is willing to go out and engage the private sector, and there's a lot of people like that who would help if asked, if somebody had a plan.
That's right.
And the problem is you don't really see any sort of 5-year, 10-year plan for the city of Houston. If there is such a thing, you'd certainly never hear about it. I would venture to guess. When's the last time you saw a 10-year plan, 20-year plan for the city of Houston? It's something that most every organization does. I certainly do it here at my law firm. I know we did it at every level when we were in the Board of Regents. Every university, individual university has a 5-10-year plan, and the university system had a 5-10-year plan, and we worked very hard to make it specific, no platitudes, but very specific. Here's what we want to be able to do. Here's what we want to lead in, that sort of thing. Here's what's most important to us. I don't see that with the city of Houston. There may be something on their outdated website. I remember looking at their website. It hadn't been updated since 2017.
Wow.
So, that's just a lack of, that's somebody, remember Stephen Covey talked about the 4 quadrants of how you spend your time. And one is important but not urgent. And one is important, urgent. One is urgent, unimportant, and non-urgent, non-important. You should spend most of your time in the non-urgent but very important.
Yes.
That's things like taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health, planning for the future, talking to, whether it be at the family level or whether it be at the city level, where, what are the things important to us? Where do we want to be going? Because you don't have a plan, who knows where you're going to go?
That's right.
And, I think Mayor Turner would do himself well. I know it's an old book. It may be out of style now. It may be, maybe it's not in vogue anymore, but I would recommend it as reading. I make all of my lawyers read it, and we talk about it quite often. It's like, you can break from a micro scale. You can look at it as a lawyer handling cases. What are the things you should be focused on? You should be focused on long-term, non-urgent, but incredibly important things, because that's how you advance your career, that's how you advance the case, that's how you advance yourself professionally, physically, emotionally, whatever. And what I see at the City of Houston is spending a lot of time in urgent, non-important things and dealing with urgent, important things, i.e., no power in this city,
Yes.
no water in this city, dealing with them in a reactive manner instead of being proactive about it.
And the night of the big freeze, I think you were out of your house, you were remodeling your home, you were staying downtown, I think at the Four Seasons at that time. You decided to do something really unusual. What
Yeah,
did you do?
yeah. You get criticized about everything you do, but
You do.
we were having dinner, and I said, "Man, can you imagine? People are without power. Eventually, we'll be without water." And the point is that your home is a place, not only of shelter, but it's where you have water, it's where you have power, it's where you have ability to communicate with others. Let's be honest, nowadays we are absolutely tied to ability to communicate via internet, and et cetera. And I said, when you don't have any of those things, it's almost like being homeless. And when you're living in a double wide that has no real insulation, once you lose power and you have no heat, that place gets cold quick. I know that because I've stayed in those before, growing up. And so I wonder what it's like for people out on the street tonight. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna spend the night on the street. And of course, my fiance and my daughter, like, Dad, don't do that. It's dangerous out there. I said, I can do it. Now it became a point of personal challenge.
Yeah.
Because they said, you can't do
They're
that.
the ones that say you were a Marine. You're the ones that say I am a Marine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it was I could only imagine doing that every single day, because you don't feel safe. There's really nowhere you can go without somebody, messing with you, and you just kind of keep moving. And so I did that. People said it was a publicity stunt. It really wasn't. It was really more for me.
Yes. So talk about the kind of the backwards thinking that we have here towards growth. You look at the I-10, I-45, kind of the inner loop rework, the $2 billion project that TxDOT's trying to get underway. You saw last week, I think the county sued TxDOT to prevent forward progress on the I-45 corridor to get that grown out. I mean, that proves your point. There's certain things they don't want, or maybe they're looking for more critical race theory based allotments for
I think Turner waited. Originally Turner was for the I-45 expansion. I think he waited and tested the political winds to see what he would consider his voters would look at this. And a lot of people are going to be displaced. There's, one of the concerns, of course, is pollution, that sort of thing. And so now, I guess the politically, depending on what party you're with, you need to be against that. But I go back to this because I wish we would spend more time making the city of Houston livable instead of making roads wider so we can get further away. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Now, that may not be a popular opinion in some circles, but I really, and the truth is, you're not really gaining a whole lot. We've seen that in other projects where you've widened the roads or added more lanes, and you really haven't relieved any congestion. One thing that we could easily do that would make things a lot easier and getting around this town is synchronize the lights. I mean, remember Bill White, that was his thing.
That's right.
Synchronize the lights. I challenge anybody to drive around here and tell me if those lights are synchronized. They're not. And I'm not just talking about downtown Houston. I'm talking about Richmond, West Alabama, all those arteries, Westheimer going that direction. So I just the lack of planning is and forward thinking is again, they're just dealing with things that are unimportant and urgent. And there's a lot of things that can be done to make this city. He could come out, or any leader could come out and say, "I'm making a commitment to you. I want to encourage you to come back. I want to encourage you and again, I'm not criticizing young professionals. I mean, they're obviously. I was a young professional once, but I'm trying to encourage families. I mean, because the first thing there's a bunch of them that work here, that are in their child years, having children. What do people? The very first consideration where they're going to live when they have a kid. What school is the child going to go to? That's the very first thing. I went through all that. The reason I lived in Friendswood, outside of the city limits of Houston, with own municipality. Friendswood has one of the best school systems in the state. There's a reason people are in Katy. There's a reason people are in other outlying areas across the city of Houston. And to really make this city vibrant and grow, laying aside the oil and gas industry and some of the other industries that we need to support here and encourage growth here, we got to do something with the school systems. We got to make the school districts where people want to live, not school systems that are schools that people are just there by default because they have no other option.
That's right. I think that I read a study a couple weeks ago that said that kids that tend to drop out of school are 9 times more likely to end up in jail, and they will always tend to drop out between their freshman and the summer of their sophomore year because they're just not interested, or they feel the teachers aren't interested in them.
Yeah.
That's a big problem here in Houston.
It's a big problem, and that's I used to say it all the time. The people say, well, the mayor or the county judge can't do anything about the school system. I reject that completely. You absolutely can. You have a bully pulpit. You can talk about it every time you talk. You can. There's a lot of things private industry can do that the mayor has the ability to twist arms to make happen.
Yes.
But you don't see a lot of that. What you see instead is, well, they're a separate entity with a separate governing body, and we really can't have any control over them.
Yeah.
I reject that.
Well, and I spoke to a member of the Texas legislature a couple weeks ago. He thinks that they're going to be able to take control of the Houston ISD before the end of this session. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. And someone needs to do something, right? We need.
I agree, but I go back to local control.
Yeah.
I really believe in the people that govern the best are the people that are closest to the people that they govern.
That's right.
And it's objectionable to me just philosophically to have somebody from Austin or Austin running our local school system. Now maybe that's what's going to be required because of this current situation, but I don't like it.
Yeah. What if they said we're going to come in for 12 months, we're going to reset the board, put some governance structure in place, and
well, that's probably what they're going to say, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and then like the mask will turn into 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah,
exactly. Let's do 2 weeks to stop the
Yeah.
spread. So you've accrued a lot of influence over the past several years. I mean, you were already very, very influential before you even ran for office.
Well, I'm okay. I'm glad you. Okay, I have influence.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and it's not money.
I influenced you wearing that pocket square. All right.
I can't get it as high as you do. That's the problem.
That comes from a lot of years of practice.
So you've got this trade-off between money and influence. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have you're a common man. You went out there and spent the night on the streets with those guys. All the firefighters know who you are. Mm-hmm. You know who they are. You've been to a lot of their homes. You've been to a lot of their funerals and their weddings and so forth. You're a man of influence, separate from the money, separate from the business success. What sort of responsibility, thinking about your business, what sort of responsibility do you feel that's incumbent upon you to exercise that influence in a way that's dignified and that also helps others? Because you were growing up in the church, mm-hmm. You always heard love your neighbor as yourself, and it seems like you're one of the few people that are actually doing that.
Well, I just want to make sure I set a good example. Your kids learn more about who you are and what you're about and how you conduct yourself than versus what you say. I mean, that's just how it is. And I've always judged my conduct, not what my mother might read in the newspaper, but what my kids may say amongst themselves or think about me. That's really keeps you kind of keeps you in line. And my kids are very politically engaged. They're on all ends of the spectrum. I've got, one of my daughters is incredibly liberal and lives in New York City, and one of my daughters is a freshman at Texas A&M. So they're all over the board as far as their political bent. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is being able to ingrain in them through example kindness, and it's one of those traits that isn't mentioned that much. Aggressiveness, tenacity, unwilling to quit, ambitious. Those are all great things, but having a sliver of kindness in there is quite helpful, and they all have that, from my youngest son to my oldest daughter, and I'm very proud of that. And I think the reason they have it is because I've tried to lead by example. When I gave away 13 cars once, I gave those away because my son was having conversations with his buddies, and they're like, "What car is your dad going to drive?" And I said, "Son, cars don't mean anything. I mean, they're nice to have, and I love cars. Well, I know we'll talk about them, but what you do when you have some success, what you're able to do with it is a lot more important." So he was like, the kid was 13 or something, and he was thinking about, which car.
It was Anthony Jr., wasn't it? Yeah.
Which car he was going to inherit and all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? You're not inheriting any cars, because we're going to auction off these cars and give the money to charity.
Yeah.
He was shocked. And just things like that. And
he wanted the green Lambo, if memory serves. Is that right?
He wanted that car, yeah, very badly. I'm sure he could picture himself on his first date. But it all that kind of conduct started. My dad is, very big man, very gruff, works with his hands, always worked with his hands, very well known in his small community. One of those kind of guys that he would fight you for any reason, and he would make up the reason. We used to just laugh. He'd fight at the drop of a hat, and he'd drop the hat himself. And so he was well known. Do not mess with Glenn Buzbee. That's not a guy you want to cross.
Yes. Whether
it was in a bar room or whether it was just like, four-wheeling in the countryside. I've seen it all. I've been in the bar rooms with him. I saw him wrestle a bear. I saw him, somebody knocked my brother's snow cone out of his hand, and my dad, made him get out of the car and walked him over and made him buy him another one. Not somebody you want to mess with, right?
No.
So, but he was, even with all that bluster and he worked on standing on his feet for 43 years, cutting meat to put food on our table. He was incredibly kind, and so at Thanksgiving and Christmas time, he would put packages together of turkey and fresh fruits and so forth, and we would go out to some of the most remote areas in Northeast Texas, people with no running water, no electricity in their house, and we'd deliver these care packs. He knew these people, and he would make me, and old lady dipping snuff, he's running down her, sitting in her chair, with a shawl over her. Hug her neck, son. Hug her neck. And it made a big impression on me. Like, this guy, he was larger than life. I could never imagine, having to fight him or anything. And then you also see him setting an example that, there are people out there that need help, and we have the ability to help them. So we're gonna do it. We would hunt, of course, every year. Hunt and fish. Anytime we had extra vegetables from our garden, we'd go around and give them to people that he knew could use them and would make use of them. And so when I started having kids, that's the same, maybe on a different degree or a different scale, but the same kind of trait that I was hoping to ingrain into my kids. And I'm happy to say my youngest is 17. I was successful in that regard.
Yes.
And so that's something I'm very, very proud about.
Yes. So last time we were together, I wasn't planning on telling this story, but it probably wasn't unusual for you. So I texted you, and I knew you were staying down at Tillman's place at Post Oak, and they tell me, "Hey, I'm going to be around. You want to grab some drinks?" Yeah, let's grab some drinks. So we meet up at Tillman's place, and I think it was like 2 days or 3 days before Christmas. It was like right around Christmas time.
Yeah.
and you jump out of the. I think you're driving your Rolls Royce that day, and we had some packages there, and you ran them up to the room, came back down, and I'm sitting there, and this guy comes up. And this just kind of gives the viewers a context of the intricacies of what it's like to be Tony Buzbee. This guy comes up. I think he was a tech executive of some sort. Very, very sharp guy. Very, very nice guy. And he said, "Hey, Tony, I just dropped a gift off for you at the front desk." And he was wearing a diamond bezeled watch. I forgot Piaget, or I forgot what it was. And you were too. And there was some sort of comment in there that inferred that maybe he had bought you a diamond bezeled watch for Christmas one year or something like that, and there was some talk about a silver hammer or some sort of device like that, and so we had a nice conversation. He leaves. About 20 minutes later, the bellhops come up, said, "Mr. Buzbee, we have more presents that were delivered for you. Do you want us to take them up to the suite with the others?"
Uh-huh.
Implying like this is a regular occurrence, like you've got a protocol for this.
Mm-hmm.
So they went up there, and then we chatted for a little while longer, and then Frank from your radio show shows up, and he's got, was it rigatoni? He made a pasta for you for Christmas.
Yeah. He made veal parmesan.
Yeah, and apparently he does that for you every year.
Every year, yeah.
And so I had to leave, so I walked over to the valet, and I remembered, I didn't pay for my drink, so I circled back to go leave some cash on the end of the bar, and as I glance at you guys out of the corner of my eye. You have this giant bag, and you're removing a golden microphone from this bag. Now, Tony, I didn't get the memo that I'm supposed to bring elaborate gifts for you for Christmas.
I don't know why. I mean, I do get a lot of stuff. I mean, I get it's that table over there is usually when I come back after the first of the year, the table is full. I get people send me all kinds of fruit. They send me brisket, turkey. I mean, more food than my housekeeper can eat. So what we didn't do it this year, but what we usually do is we make these little care packages and put brisket and maybe a half an orange, and we go down. There's several places in Houston where the homeless are, and we hand it out. But yeah, I get Frank. He makes me veal parmesan every year. There's certain people in the town that always give me, I've been given custom guns. You saw that golden microphone. Yeah. It's very gratifying. I mean, I'm not a very good gift giver, but I'm really good at taking gifts.
So I'll either bring you frankincense or myrrh next year. You already got the gold. Yeah. So there's some iconic Tony Buzbee stories that I was looking around for. I couldn't find them with you narrating the story. You actually telling the story. So I wanted to get some stories in your own words. The first story was something that came up during the election, and I'll give sort of intro to that. Hurricane Harvey came through, decimated Houston. I think there were 80,000 some odd structures that were decimated, just completely destroyed. You hosted the fundraiser for the city of Houston on your own dime, and that came up during the campaign. You want to?
Oh, you mean the Snoop Dogg party?
Yeah, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. We usually do a yearly party. We were doing it yearly, then we're doing it every other year, and we're always looking to get a performer that's somebody that's going to put on a good show. We had one year we had Snoop Dogg. So this right after the hurricane, we decided that we're going to spend this money. Why don't we give people, because people were, the good thing about Houston is when these kinds of things happen, people pull together. And we see this every time something bad happens. 9/11, remember how patriotic and everybody was together after 9/11. 2008, Hurricane Ike, people came together. Harvey, people came together. Individual people doing heroic things, selfless service out there doing everything they could to help their neighbors. Even if it's the smallest kind act of just going next door and helping your neighbor rip out their drywall or things like that. You saw it all over the city of Houston and in some cases all over the United States. And so, people were in a giving mood. And so we made the party to be, we'd like you to donate money. to the Red Cross. Some people criticize that. But I love the way that was used against me in the campaign. But I've grown used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a burr under my saddle. It's not even a pea in my mattress anymore. But I kind of got used to it. But that was a great party, and people were very giving, and people that didn't come to the party gave money. So
Yes.
I was proud of that. But we've always tried to raise money for certain charities. Animal rescue is something that's very important to me. A lot of the animals we have on our ranch are rescued, from alpacas to camels to just a lot of different animals, horses, donkeys. We started with 2 donkeys. We liked them so much. Now we have almost 10 donkeys that we rescued.
Frances loves the donkeys.
She loves the donkeys. I never knew donkeys were that sweet. I love donkeys. They're I used to make the joke about you look like a jackass today, and then the donkey looks pretty good too. But I don't do
like that.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, we did that, and so that was that.
So you have it's a larger ranch, and then you have a high fenced area you call the island. Tell us about how that's all laid out.
Yeah, I have a ranch it's just northeast Texas piney woods, a lot of horses, donkeys, lots of cows. The typical thing you would see on a ranch: pigs, hogs, and then there's this area where we have llamas, alpacas. There's an area where we have a few goats. There's an area where we have some buffalo. But there's the separate area that we call Buzbee Island, which is high fenced, and we have every kind of antelope you can think about. Some critically endangered, others just endangered. We have camels there. We have, every kind of deer you can think of, and it's just a nice place to go. And you can just go through one of the gates, and basically you're doing a kind of a safari. And the ultimate goal was to have a place that's safe that we could bring kids out to, and from Houston, and let them pet the animals and that sort of thing. And that's in the work. We hope to be doing that by the end of this year.
Great.
But it's going to, a lot of people, we have zebras, wildebeest, a lot of these animals that people would never see. And, you bring 5 or 10 kids from Houston with a chaperone. You bring them out, let them pet the miniature goats and the little pot-bellied pigs, and let them pet the llamas and alpacas, and let them feed a giraffe and watch the zebras run. Probably be a very nice experience for a child to kind of open their eyes a little bit about what's out there in the world, and
Certainly.
Feed them a nice meal, and give them a nice bunk, and bring them back.
So you've done a lot of work with the rescue horses. I've seen you have a trainer out there, and you really helped quite a bit of them.
Lots of those rescues can be salvaged to even ride. The Habitat for Horses, which is in Alvin, Texas, is the largest horse rescue organization in the country. Willie Nelson, I think, took 100 horses from them once. They have hundreds upon hundreds of horses of people that for whatever reason just gave up their horse. And so anybody that's, and they know which horses can probably be trained and be safe, and they know which ones can't. When we went out there, we chose with one exception. I said, just give us the worst ones you have, the ones that give you the most trouble.
Wow.
And I had a horse that somebody had left a halter on for when it was a baby, and just deformed its face. People can be quite cruel with animals. And those horses are gentle. You can pet them, feed them carrots. So they're just, and I think we have 13 or 14 of them now. And the trainer has some of them where they're so gentle you can ride them without even a bridle. You can ride them bareback.
Wow.
But he spends a lot of time with them. And we're even going to rescue tortoises.
I saw the call for tortoises go out in the last
She wants
48
she
hours.
wants
Yeah,
to
yeah.
she wants to get some tortoises. I've never had a lot of, I'm kind of scared of those things. But I guess we'll get one.
The Black Stallion is yours.
That's mine.
Okay. Okay.
That's the horse that I have two horses that I ride. I ride him, and then three really, but he's the one. But you got to be on your P's and Q's when you ride him because he's full of life and he's big.
Yeah.
And fast and spirited, and he knows how to do all the prancing stuff and all that stuff. I don't know how to do any of that, but the horse trainer knows how to do all that stuff. He's the one. I don't know if you remember the rodeo that I rode in the rodeo.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's a beautiful, beautiful horse.
Yeah. Yeah. So you also have the story, and probably the first story that people heard about Tony Buzbee was the tank story.
Yeah. Yeah. So my one of my lawyers, who I was my college roommate, who we went to the Marines together at the same time. He knows I like to collect things. I like historical items. Anytime there's any sort of auction, I've gotten like wine decanters from George Washington, or the tobacco box that was on FDR's desk, or LBJ's cufflink box, a piece of the Star Spangled Banner, sketches done by John F. Kennedy Jr. Or John F. Kennedy, things like that he's always on the lookout for. Or sometimes you might see it come across social media or something, and I'll say to him, "Hey, get that for me. See if you can get that." I've been to Normandy twice, and my grandfather landed, I think, D+4 at Normandy and fought all the way to Berlin. And I have all of his historical things that he brought back, all kinds of Nazi stuff he pulled off dead Nazi soldiers, and just all kinds of stuff that he, back then, different than now, you could collect war souvenirs and bring them home.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought home a German Ruger pistol. He took off a dead Nazi officer, multiple helmets, stuff you can't do that today. I mean, they don't let you bring back anything.
No.
But so I have a lot of those kind of things, and I'd been to the tank museum that's right outside of Normandy, and they had some private individual had put together just this incredible selection of tanks. Well, they announced that he was going to retire. The family didn't want to fool with his museum anymore. This was his life work. And David, this lawyer I'm talking, or this colleague of mine, he said, they're auctioning off everything. And I said, really? You think you'd get me a tank? And I said, it'd be really cool. We could run over cars and out at the ranch. And I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. But when a couple of my friends found out that I was getting a tank, and it took a year to get it. It took we had to clear customs in France, and then it went to England, and then it went to Galveston, and then I had to get DOT approval to bring it up the freeway, and I had police escorts that told me exactly where to put it, which was kind of ironic when then they started ticketing it. They're the ones that put it there. And so we had, it took a year because it was just a bunch of administrative stuff. And so several of my buddies like, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm having it delivered from Galveston straight to Northeast Texas to leave it at my ranch. Oh, no, man, you can't do that. We want to see it. You've never invited us to your ranch. I said, well, I'll park it in my front yard for a week or so. So when we got it to my neighborhood, we couldn't get it up the driveway. It was too large, and they were worried that it was going to ruin the concrete going up the driveway and then ruin the front. And so the police said, well, just put some wood down, and you can leave it right here. And we put up cones, we put reflectors on it, and that's where we left it. Well, it became a huge thing.
Now, this is on the most expensive street in Houston.
It became a huge thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't, people park in that area all the time. The tank is specifically designed, the freeways of the United States are designed for tanks to roll down them, because not only is the interstate system a system for transportation, it's also a system for mobilizing war. Okay, so these tanks are specifically designed for the width, it's in size to travel down our roads. That's how all of our roads are designed in that way, ultimately. So this thing is not wider than a normal car. It's just sitting there on the side. You know, of course, it makes quite an impression when you're driving by and all of a sudden you see a World War II tank sitting there that's fully restored.
Yeah.
So it created a lot of interest, and a lot of people just loved it. There were no complaints at all. None. Not one person complained. In fact, a lot of people that I know brought their kids over and took pictures, and they really thought it was kind of cool. And I thought not a lot of it. I was going to have it moved, and then I got a letter from the HOA, which said that it was a hazard because it was causing traffic backup, which wasn't the case at all, and they were afraid somebody would get hurt climbing around on it. And of course, somebody got hurt climbing around on it. I have a sign on it that says "Don't climb around on this," But I know people did. But if somebody got hurt, it wouldn't be the homeowners association they would look for. It'd be me.
Yes.
I mean, who would be the bigger target, me or the homeowners association? Yeah. So that kind of made me mad, and and I'm not some big HOA advocate or anti-HOA person, but I called the guy up and I said, "Don't ever send me a letter like this anymore. I'm throwing it straight in the trash, and if you want to move the tank, you can go out and go call the cops and tow it. Good luck to you." And that created a stir.
Yes.
And so then every 2 days, there would be a ticket on it. The cops started ticketing the tank. I remember these are the same police officers that told me that gave me the police escort without even asking.
Yes.
And then stayed there with me while the guy that was operating it placed it exactly where they said put it. That's the same police. So when I started getting tickets, I said, I actually had planned on moving it this week, but I'm gonna leave it there 2 more weeks. just that's just the way I am.
Sure.
And some people would say, well, that's a real jerk move, but I did it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's
would I do it again? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'd have put it on a side street.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
but it is what it is. And the tank is. I did take it out to my ranch. I did run over 3 cars. It was incredibly scary. I got a real understanding of the 5 people that made up a crew in those tanks, and they are just in there like little sardines. Of course, people back then were smaller.
Yeah.
My granddad was 5'8", probably weighed $130, but I couldn't imagine living in one. It's the same tank in that movie that Brad Pitt was in, Fury.
Yeah.
It's the exact same tank.
Wow.
And they really, in that movie, portrayed exactly how cramped it is in there and how they make their whole lives living inside this tank. So we went out and ran over a few cars. There's no soft spots in there. Your head hits. I mean, so I said, boys, I think we've had our fun with this tank. So we donated it to a museum in College Station, and they committed to keeping it operational because it's a lot of work to keep it because it's all metal, and so they have a fully restored, fully operational with the exception of the main gun tank now, and they've also part of the agreement was that they would make it available to the A&M Corps cadets to the extent that they wanted to use it. So I thought the end of the story is good.
Yes. Well, that story is about the Texas panache, is what I like to call it. This Texas ethos. Like when God decided He's going to make Texas, He's saying, "Why can't you just put regular people there? I got to put people there that do what they want to do, that really don't care about the rules." Now, the rule followers down deep, but they're cowboys. Let's call them cowboys.
Yeah. Well, look. I mean, you think it's people like I'm going to Texas.
Yeah.
That whole mentality and the mentality of the Alamo and doing things bold things that some people were, people that are more hesitant or reticent, wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've had cases I've been involved in where, some of my lawyer friends are like, "Man, are you sure you want to be in that? You sure you want to do that?" And, you just have to trust your instincts and and go forward.
Yeah. So do you think it's that you only pick winners or winners only pick you? Like, how do you have such a high degree of success in your business?
That I don't know. I think the law business is one of the few businesses that you have a lot of control over your success. You know, in real estate, there's nothing you can do about, you know, when you hit an economic downturn or oil prices go down, you know, you may be doing everything right and you're just a victim of circumstance.
Yes.
In the legal business, you know, I usually, any case that I'm personally involved in, I meet the client, I talk to them, I get my sense of them. I assume all clients lie or shade the truth, and I try to spend a lot of time getting there to make myself comfortable. And then in the legal business, you know, the motions I file, the arguments I make, you know, I have a control over almost, I mean, obviously I can't control the court's decisions, but I can make the best pitch and hopefully stack the deck in my favor with logic and reasoning and passion. And for somebody like me, there's no better business. And the margins are good.
Yeah.
You know, and I get to choose the people I work with.
Definitely.
So I'm blessed that I get to choose the people I work with and surround myself with. I get to choose the clients I want to work with. So I think, you know, and there may be some cases that I know are tougher than others. You know, I don't just take the easy ones. But I do have I am lucky enough and fortunate enough, and having been doing this a while, that I do get sought out by people that have very good cases.
Yes.
And so my advice always to our young lawyers is, you know, why there's thousands upon thousands of lawyers in Texas and Houston. There's almost 2 million lawyers in the United States. Why would somebody choose you? And if you don't have an answer to that, you're probably not in the right business.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And I know why people choose me. So you need to figure out, and you don't have to have the same personality as me. You need to have the same work ethic. But you know, I can teach you most everything you need to know. What I can't teach you to be is hungry, and I can't teach you to try to set yourself apart. Something you're going to have to figure out, you know, in your professional development. So I guess sometimes I choose winners, and sometimes winners choose me.
So probably one of the biggest winners of Texas, Governor Rick Perry, chose you when he was facing, as a sitting governor, facing life in prison, I believe, if memory serves.
99 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I was driving to pick up my children from Camp Longhorn, and I had read about the indictment. I didn't even know that the grand jury had been impaneled. He had hired a different lawyer to manage that. The advice was, this is silly. Can't be an indictment on something like this. But
Were you guys friends back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And lo and behold, they indicted him. And, you know, I made the point, and it's true, that you can indict a ham sandwich in Texas, because the way it works is, and that's why we both believe there needs to be grand jury reform, is that the only person that gets to talk, you know, the defendant's not going, the charge is not going to talk. Yeah. So you got a prosecutor in there who can show these grand jury members anything he or she wants, and can comment on the evidence, and can get an indictment for literally any time they want. And the only time you would get a no bill, a no indictment, is when they don't want one. And it clears them, so nobody accuses them of not prosecuting a case that should be prosecuted. So they have 100% ability to get what they want out of that grand jury. So that particular, when the criminal complaint was filed by this liberal group out of Austin, several judges, because it went to several judges to impanel a grand jury, recused themselves. So they had to go to San Antonio to get a judge, and that judge was the one that appointed the special prosecutor, because the Austin, or the Travis County District Attorney's Office, completely recused itself. So you had a San Antonio district judge who appointed his own prosecutor, and that prosecutor was the one who put the evidence in front of the grand jury, and of course got the indictment, like you know, everybody would have known he was. And Rick's team at the time didn't put any contrary evidence in front of them, including the Constitution that gives him absolute authority to do absolutely what he did, or a video of that DA who was so drunk she was spitting at the police officers, that sort of thing. So recall, he was indicted for a line item veto. He basically, this specific DA, because she was in Travis County and in Austin, she had a budget of about $7 or $8 million, where that budget was used to investigate any elected official across the state of Texas. It's a very specifically set up by the legislature, and it gives her the authority to do that. Well, she was pulled over. Well, she was going the wrong way on a road, pulled over with a bottle of vodka, half empty, sitting on her next seat over. She was belligerent. She fought the cops. They had to restrain her. They had to restrain her legs and her arms, and she kept spitting at them. Remember, this is an elected district attorney for Travis County, one of the largest counties in our state, the home of our sitting government. She was spitting at these officers. They had to put a spit guard over her. And so when Rick heard about this, he said, I don't think she should be investigating anybody. So he said, I'm going to veto unless she appoints somebody else in her office to run that particular division. I'm going to veto. She has no
So
credibility.
he didn't even demand a resignation. He just asked her to appoint
No, he just said,
someone else.
appoint somebody else for this because I'm in charge of this. Is part of this is you have your own budget, but this $7 million, that's my budget, and I get to decide how it's spent. So she refused. He vetoed. Then he gets indicted. The conventional wisdom, of course, was once you're accused of a crime, shut your mouth. So I learned about the indictment just on my phone, and I got a call from a block number, and the only person that calls me from a block number is Governor Perry. He said, "Could you come to the mansion?" It's like, yeah. I mean, I kind of knew what it's about, so I went over there, and he said, "I want you to lead my team. I want you to put together the team, the best in the country." He said, "And do it however you think is right." And I said, "Well, I think you should be on TV tomorrow." Because this was I think they announced it on Friday. It was public on Saturday. And I think he did his press conference either on Saturday or Sunday. He did a press conference. And we kind of controlled the narrative of pointing out how baseless this was and how it all came about and how it's shady and sketchy. And we got national figures like Dershowitz to chime in. And we put together a team of people that had been involved in high-profile Democrat and Republican who were willing to write op-eds to newspapers. And then we pressed the case really hard, and we pressed that judge very hard. He's on the Court of Criminal Appeals now, but we pressed him. He didn't like the publicity. I went over to the special prosecutor, who's he's a criminal defense lawyer. That's what he was. I went over to San Antonio to meet with him. I said, "Man, you're never going to win this case. You can't win this case. Why don't you just drop it now and save all of us the trouble?" And he thought he had a tiger by the tail. He had a friendly judge who he was, obviously they were friends. He was appointed by him. And we played it out, and we got some of the charges, the sitting judge, and I don't have any negative thing to say about him, but it was a hot case, really hot, and he refused to dismiss any of it. Then we went to the Court of Appeals. They dismissed all charges but one, and we had to go argue the case in front of the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, and by that point, the sitting judge was on that same court. He recused himself.
Good.
And they finally dismissed the charges. But, you got to take that seriously because, Rick always made this joke about, Travis County and Austin was the blueberry in a red soup or something. I forget his analogy, but, Austin's very liberal.
Yeah.
And it's very political. And, that could have went very badly for him. And I think us getting out in front of it, him speaking about it, obviously we vetted everything he was going to say, but it was really a legal issue. I mean, it was purely a legal issue. How can you ever indict somebody for doing their official job?
That's right.
But it was an ordeal for him, and luckily, I think because of our work, when people talk about Rick Perry, that's not something they really talk too much about. Because I think we did a very good job of demonstrating early in the case that it was complete malarkey.
Yeah.
And not to be taken seriously.
Well, the one thing that you did that I think everyone remembers is that day he went to go get his mugshot, and you see that pristine dimple in the.
He's a fine-looking man, I got to say.
Yeah, he's a good-looking.
He's a fine-looking man.
Yeah, yeah.
No, we walked down from the mansion. I mean, I made sure, we obviously every detail. And
the press was following around all day that day.
Followed us
they
all
were
day.
all there.
We went in there and made sure that he smiled in his most good-looking smile. And most mug shots are like, he's just looking like he just walked out of GQ magazine.
Yeah.
And he came out of the courthouse, and we had arranged for a large rally. So there were like 200 or 300 people there with signs saying, "We support you." And he gave a speech, and we went and got ice cream.
When he got ice cream, that was the famous part of it.
That was his little nugget he threw in.
Yeah.
I said, "What are we going to do now? We want to have a drink of scotch?" He says, "No, let's go have some ice cream."
That's right.
So
I remember. And you three guys were walking. I forgot the other attorney that was with you, but you were walking out with ice cream cones.
Botsford, yeah.
Yeah.
We I think we handled that pretty well.
Yeah. Well, that's part of that Texas swagger, right? I mean, like I don't give a rip. You're indicting me, and I'm to take a mug shot. I might spend life in prison. Let's go get some ice cream.
Let's go get some ice cream.
Yeah.
The judge, he was more hesitant about that. He wanted to issue a gag order, and I was like, "No, sir.
Yeah.
Don't want that.
Yeah.
We need to be able to speak our piece, and we're gonna follow the rules. There are rules that govern lawyers, what they can say. They don't govern clients. Clients say whatever they want. But I was very careful about keeping it just like I always am, keeping it within the lines of the ethical rules, and it worked out for us. And I mean, he should have never had to go through all that. It was very taxing on his family. He never let it show, but I know it was hard on his family. Okay, is this something that wasn't on the card?
No, this is. We've got to talk about something serious now.
Okay.
This is real deal serious. I know.
Right.
I know we were talking about fluffy subjects like ice cream a second ago.
Yeah.
Sushi.
Oh.
Sushi.
Sushi in the city of Houston. Sushi. Here, I'll give you the top two for sure. Are MF Sushi's number one, Uchi's number two. What's this KA Sushi? I'd never go there. Never go there. Never go there. Trying to think the third place. Who would I go? Where would I go the third place? I'm always going to go with MF if I can get into MF Sushi.
Yeah.
I think they're doing the best job in this town. Uchi's probably, it's done a better job of promoting itself. When you think of sushi, you think of Uchi, but MF is better. What's the place that Tillman owns a piece of?
Not Rocco Core.
No, Rocco Core is good, a little different, but good. I would put them top five. There's one that who is it? Robert De Niro has a piece of this one.
Oh, Nobu.
Nobu.
Yeah.
I would go to Nobu.
Yeah.
But my choice would be MF Sushi.
Yeah. So Nobu started his own chain of restaurants outside of the De Niro partnership called Matsuhishu, I think. There's like 10 or 15 of them.
Okay.
Well, there's one in Aspen. We were in Aspen last year and popped in there for dinner. Very difficult to get in.
Yeah.
And there's Nobu right there. He comes over to the table and he spends 15 minutes with us talking to the kids and brought us the books, signed the books and everything, talked about sushi. He's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Houston." I said, "We have a location there." I said, "Yeah, we need a couple more." He said, "You know what? We're looking at 2 more locations there."
Really?
That's what he said. That was a year ago. So
it's not. I mean, I can always get into the places. I'm lucky that way, but it's usually packed, even in pandemic.
Okay. So I would agree with you that that Uchi is a top 2. I think it's probably a little bit better than MF Sushi in my opinion. And here's the only reason why. I was at MF Sushi last week for a little bit of due diligence on our conversation.
Uh-huh.
I'd never been before.
Okay.
And so get through the meal. Meal was great.
Are you writing that meal off as research?
Oh no, I'm invoicing you for it. Yeah. No, and so I come to dessert and I order the coffee. I'm a Texan boy, so Japanese you either have tea or sake with your sushi, and then you finish off with maybe a coffee as a Texan boy. Sir, we don't have coffee. It's fine. What do you have for dessert? Bring me the dessert menu. Oh, we only have mochi.
Yeah.
That's fine. I
all
love
they
mochi.
have. Yeah.
Bring the mochi. So they bring the mochi, and they take my my chopsticks. And so I wait around for the waiter to come by, and I said, "Sir, I need some chopsticks to eat my mochi with." Well, mochi is finger food. I said, "Well, it's not finger food anywhere else that I go." I said, "I'd like to have some chopsticks. I'm not a savage." That's the only complaint I have about that place. Is they want
what flavor did you get?
strawberry.
Strawberry.
Yeah, how about you?
That's the best one. I mean, they have 4 flavors, but the strawberry is probably the best
You
one.
can't go machi. I know.
I don't even eat
machi.
I don't eat the outside cover.
Little-
I just do like this and.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's good.
So that's my I think Rococourt's probably top 5, like you said. But Nobu, and you have Uptown Sushi too.
Uptown's good.
Yeah.
Uptown's good.
And that's been solid for 20 years.
A
maybe?
long time. They're good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Steak places as the butcher's son.
Steak places. I don't want to give credit where credit's not due, but I do like going to Mastro's and Vic and Anthony's. I like Tillman does steak places well.
He does.
He does. Vic and Anthony's was a place I would go twice a week when I was eating out a lot by myself. Sometimes I would just walk from here to Vic and Anthony's. I like the bar scene. I just like the food. They cook a really good steak. Mastro's does as well. I like B&B just because I like the atmosphere, and I like Ben Berg. Papa's I'm not a big fan of.
Really?
I used to be, but the last couple of times I've been there, it's been not a good experience. The steak was not good. In fact, I sent it back and paid. They said, "Well, we're going to comp." I said, "I don't really want the comp. I just tell them that's not a good steak. There's nothing not good about that steak."
Yeah.
Because it's all about choosing the steak.
That's right. What's your cut of choice?
T-bone.
Okay.
I'm always a T-bone.
Okay.
I'm T-bone.
You ever grab a tomahawk when you got someone else with you?
No, it's a
little too redneck for you?
Too much for me.
Yeah.
Is really what I think right now is the coolest restaurant in town?
What?
Turner's.
That is. They just started opening for lunch too.
That's a cool place.
Yeah.
Like if you want to go someplace that you feel like you're in New York, the food is it's basically American stuff, but he specifically designed it behind. It looks kind of like the Polo Lounge.
Yes.
In New York. That's a nice place, and I think he's in the process of opening more.
Good.
And I don't want to leave out Ronnie Killen. Ronnie Killen's his food is different than everybody else's. I think that guy's a genius, to be honest. And I know we're getting off topic of steaks, but he does steaks, but I'm not a huge fan of the steaks, but his chicken fried steak and his ribs and his brisket. I mean, shoot, man. That guy, he's doing the food for my wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That'll be great. Great.
So, but we got a lot of options here. I mean, I'm sure there's tons that I haven't even explored. There's places in the Heights that I need to go visit. I get a lot of people contact me and say, "You can come visit." We got a great, on Bel Air, all the various Asian restaurants, crawfish and noodles. I mean, there's a bunch of them over there that are just really good. We're blessed. I mean, we got a lot of good food.
Yeah, and some of the weird things like Turner's. I walked into Turner's for a business lunch a couple weeks ago, and I ordered the salad and the soup, trying to be responsible. They said, "No, you're supposed to get the hot dog. I think it's like a Wagyu hot dog and the burger."
Yeah.
I got the burger the next time I came. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, and no, he's got it figured out. We're lucky. We got 5, 10 people in this town who have it figured out, and pretty much everything they open is successful.
Vegas versus Manhattan food scenes.
I hate Vegas, so I like New York. It's my place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't stand Vegas. It's just such a shallow place for me. I'm sure the food is great, and I don't gamble, so
Okay.
my whole life's a gamble. So I don't try to make I don't want to any more games of chance.
Yeah.
Every lawsuit I file is at some degree is a game of chance.
That's right. Fashion. You're known for the quintessential Buzbee look is typically some skinny jeans, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that they're well tailored jeans. Either some loafers or some sneakers.
Yeah.
A tee. I don't think I've ever seen you in a graphic tee, but then the great blazer with a massive pocket square there.
Yeah.
What's your kind of vision on style? I mean, are you are you handcrafting everything yourself? Are you going to the
Yeah.
store and having them put?
No, I do.
together
That's
for you?
all me.
Okay.
It's whatever I feel like on that day. I buy a lot of shoes. I'm a real shoe weirdo. I love shoes. People send me shoes.
Really?
Yeah.
What size are you, so everyone knows?
12. So people send me shoes, and they'll want me to. They don't ask me to, but if somebody sends me some shoes, I'll put them on and I'll do a little video for them, and or they send me T-shirts, and I've had tailors in town that offer to do me one suit for free because they want to try to get my business. But in court, I'm Brioni always.
Is that a Brioni?
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
always Brioni. It's my favorite, and then just for casual, it depends on what I'm going to be doing that day. But I got many jackets I've never worn. I like to, it depends on my mood.
Yeah.
But I like to be comfortable. But there's a new casual nowadays. How it is, and the lawyers here used to want to do casual Friday. And it's like, on Friday we're not going to work hard on the cases. We're not going to be as professional on Friday. No, we're going to be professional on all days. But yeah, I mean, I used to get all of my clothes from Toggy. I've been using Fastari. I like to just buy off the rack.
Okay.
And just whatever catches my eye.
Sure. On the shoe front, specifically the sneakers, are you a designer sneaker guy, or will you buy like the old school Adidas and things like that?
Yeah, I like both.
Okay.
Yeah, I like both. I walk a lot, so I got multiple pairs of Nikes, and
Yeah.
but I like Tom Ford's my favorite. If it's off the rack, Tom Ford's. I mean,
The liners are just insane.
Yeah. I like Tom Ford. I like his shoes. I like his sunglasses. I like his jackets. I like his look. If there was a look that I think is really a cool look, if you ever watched that show Billions, the man.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
You ought to watch. It's a very good show. I'm also a show freak and a poetry freak and a literature freak. So I just can't help myself. But I'm interested in a lot of things. But the main character on there, the way he dresses is kind of I would say closely fits my taste.
Okay, I'll look at that. So the key for everyone, when you're wearing white sneakers, especially like the Adidas, the old school Adidas sneakers with the stripes on them, or the Nike with the swoosh on it, or even some of these Pumas, is if they're primarily white sneakers, you wear them 5 times, you never wear more than 10 times, you throw them away. I mean, there's a reason why they're like 30, 40, 50 bucks, right? You got to keep them pristine.
Yeah, you got to look good.
Yeah. Well, so I want to close by talking a little bit more of a serious subject. So, as the dad of 3 daughters, I just say my wife and I were talking about this the other day. My wife, who you know,
Of course.
about how great is it to have a figure like Tony Buzbee, just a dangerous figure out there who fights for justice. And as the dad of 3 girls, I can just tell you that I'm appreciative, and my wife's appreciative for the defense of victims that you've espoused over the past really 20 years, specifically with the more recent cases where you've got this kind of tier A predator out there who's just taking advantage of these poor women and using threats of his power against them. And I think a lot of that is having someone like you on the scene, that there's a cautionary tale there for them that maybe they can go a little far, but sooner or later they're going to meet their match. And
I hope so.
And
I hope you're right about that.
A general rule is you don't mess around with a man that's got a great white shark on his jet. You just don't do that.
I hope you're right about that.
You just don't do that.
I mean, if you only knew all of the cases that were quietly settled and resolved with apologies, financial payment, and agreement to counseling or that sort of thing that you've never heard of in this town and in across the United States that I get contacted on. A lot of times, it's the absolute not what the victim wants is any sort of publicity. I mean, they've already went through an incredibly traumatic situation, and then to be called, complicit, consensual, and all the other things that they get called just makes it 10 times worse. And so I spend a lot of time, and I'll just give you an example. Stanley Marsh, the creator of the Cadillac Ranch in Amarillo, who's now deceased. I got a call from a lawyer from Amarillo. He said, I have this 16-year-old boy. He says that Stanley Marsh has been paying him for sexual conduct, to perform for him, various things, giving him Viagra, help encouraging him to recruit other young boys. Now, I knew who Stanley Marsh was. I'd been to the Cadillac Ranch. I knew that he was one of these guys in Amarillo, big guy in a small city, financially powerful. Wife was on every board in Amarillo, country club, etc. But I wasn't a member. I wasn't from Amarillo. Yeah. I really didn't care about Amarillo's social society. I said, I'm going to send a plane to get you and bring him over here and let me hear it from his own mouth. So the lawyer came over with the young man and with his mother, and I told them, just go wait in there. I'm going to talk to this boy alone. And so he told me his story, and I had him draw for me Marsh's office, show me exactly where Marsh's desk was, everything. I was testing him. Almost knocked me out of my chair, some of the things he told me. He had pictures. He told me about all the other boys that were involved, how he felt guilty because he had told him, Marsh will give you $20 or $30, or Marsh will give you some, this drug or that drug if you will come up to the 12th floor of Chase Tower in Amarillo. So I started filing cases. Filed one, then the next day I'd file another one, and it was big news in Amarillo. And I knew I was right, though. And I knew, despite the vitriol from that community against these boys, partly because they were involved in activities that people thought were homosexual activities, and were you can only imagine the kind of comments they made about these boys and about the boys' families, because they were for the most part all minors. So I had to file the cases. I had to list the mother or father's name and put as next friend of Jane Doe or John Doe. And the vitriol against these families, because you're attacking, a iconic legend, Stanley Marsh, who's done more for this community than these boys ever done, other than, And so every couple of days I filed another case. Every couple of days I filed another case. I put together a package, affidavits from these young men, pictures, drawings, took it to the Potter County DA, which is Amarillo, and he recused himself. And they brought in the DA from Lubbock, who indicted him for under 12 counts of misconduct, sexual abuse of children, etc. And then all of a sudden, all these naysayers who had been saying all these things about these boys, now all of a sudden they turned on Stanley Marsh. And Stanley Marsh didn't live to be prosecuted. He died probably 6 months later.
Which is just a shame.
Yeah,
just a shame.
Because my thing was he should be put under the jail for what he's done to these boys. So I've been through this before, and I would like to think that when people hear about this case or that case, that there's method to what I'm doing, and I'm doing it in a methodical, reasonable way. And maybe it's not the way they would do it, but maybe I might know a little bit more than them about how to do things that work. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of some of the cases. The list has grown so much that cases that I'm really proud about. But I'm proud of that one because Stanley Marsh was a predator, and but there are predators out there. Like I say, I can never disclose it, but there are people that people in high places that I've handled cases where people have alleged certain things against them, and we handled it in a way that was satisfactory to the victim. I always try to include an apology and then a commitment to work on themselves so it doesn't happen again. And the truth is, this latest case would have been resolved in the same way, but there was no willingness to do so on the other side.
So I think just as we wrap up, Jordan Peters likes to talk about something you just alluded to. Is one of the purposes of the justice system is to obtain apology, to obtain repentance, or at least have some sort of turnaround of the perpetrator. Obviously you want to have some sort of restitution emotionally or physically from with the victim. But I think a big part of that is, again, as the dad of 3 girls, you've got 4 kids. You know, if someone offends those girls in a certain way, you know, it's not for me. I don't want to wait for a justice system. I want to have vengeance. I want to go tear someone's throat out. And Jordan Peterson talks about that. Like, that's one of the purposes of the justice system, is that it relieves the family of the accusers, the family of the victims, from trying to seek out vengeance and revenge on themselves. And it seems like having someone like you, not even if they're represented by you, but having someone like you hanging out here, overseeing, and just there's a potential that you could be brought in on some of these cases, that alone provides that sort of relief for the victims' families, that there's the chance that someone like Tony Buzbee, or Tony Buzbee himself, God forbid, should interject himself in a situation.
I hope you're right.
And apply ultimate vengeance.
I hope you're correct in that. I mean, if that's the case, then I'm doing my job.
Yes, yes. Well, Tony, I appreciate your friendship. Appreciate everything you've meant for this community.
Thank you.
Community loves you. And,
Some of it does.
Yes, yes. And we're waiting to see what's next from Tony Buzbee.
All right.
Thanks, my friend.
Yep.